You should not be here.
Pennsylvania, where the evening sun bled into the horizon and the fields of overgrown thistles whispered in the breeze as if trying to warn me away, and I had parked my car near a red barn that, slumped against the weight of time, its roof sagging its paint peeling its silence heavy as a curse, and I had come there with my camera bag slung over my shoulder, eager to explore and document places people said you should never step into, but curiosity is a disease that takes root in people like me, and as the golden light faded into cold shadow, I stepped into the tall grass, my shoes wet with dew, and I saw the barn door hanging slightly ajar, fog curling around it like breath from some unseen mouth. And though every instinct told me to turn back, I pushed forward my hand, trembling on the strap of my bag, and when I slipped inside, I froze in disbelief, because the floor before me was covered in thousands upon thousands of abandoned shoes, all gray with dust and decayed children's sneakers, muddy boots, sandals, slippers, all strewn together in a sea of mildew and rot and the stench of wet. Leather choked the air, and yet a single shaft of golden sunlight pierced through a crack in the boards, illuminating the mountain of shoes as though highlighting a secret I was never meant to see, and I crouched low, lifting my flashlight, and the beam shook as I caught sight of a tiny pink sandal half, buried among the others, its bent strap rusted, buckle, and dried. Mud etched into the tread, and for a moment it seemed to glow under the flashlight as though it wanted to be noticed, and the weight of those silent shoes pressed against me, like the presence of the thousands who had once worn them, and I whispered to myself, "Why are they here? Whose were they but no?" Answer came only silence and mildew, and as I shifted my weight, the sound of brittle crunching filled the barn like bones snapping underfoot, and then, without warning, the heavy barn door slammed shut behind me with a violence that shook the bone rafters and plunged the place into absolute black, and only the thin trembling line of my flashlight kept the dark at bay, and I spun around calling out, "Hello, is someone there?" But the only reply was the soft shuffle of footsteps across the sea of shoes, the shadows stretching unnaturally across the flay piles as if cast by something not present, and panic burned my present chest as I shoved at the barn door, but it would not budge, the latch sealed from the outside, and as I pounded with my fists, something unseen stirred in the dark, and then a single shoe flew from nowhere, landing at my feet as if hurled by a hand that did not exist, and terror sent me crashing against the wall. And then suddenly, the door burst open with such force that it threw me back into the tall grass, and I scrambled on hands and knees to the open field, gasping for air. And when I turned back, I saw the barn silhouetted against the brood, last dying light of the sun, and in the doorway stood a figure, black and faceless, unmoving, its outline sharp and wrong, and though I blinked, it did not vanish, only watching as I stumbled into my car and sped away, gravel spitting beneath my tires, my hands shaking so violently I could barely hold the wheel, and yet even as I left it behind, I could not stop thinking of it for nights and weeks, until I found myself on another road, this time outside the city, near a condemned warehouse at 2 a.m, where a single window glowed with faint white light against the black backdrop of concrete, and chain-link fence sagging like a trap, and I climbed over, ignoring the scrape of rusted wire against my jeans, and slipped inside, and the warehouse air was heavy with dust and oil, and under the swaying glow of a bare light bulb, I found 12 folding chairs arranged in a perfect circle, each one with a paper coffee cup beside it, steam faintly rising as though whoever had been here had only just left, and I whispered, "Is someone here?" And my voice cracked in the cavernous emptiness, and I lifted my beam across the walls where dozens of blueprints were taped, but every single label had been native, blacked out with strips of thick tape, and under them scribbled words in jagged pencil lines that meant nothing and everything at once, and I stepped closer, and my chest went cold as my flashlight revealed 3 faint numbers drawn into the wall. 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 4, and the handwriting seemed almost carved into the concrete as though desperate to record a time, a warning, a prophecy, and I whispered them under my breath, when suddenly, from the dark behind me, a voice whispered back, "Not tonight," and the bulb overhead flickered violently, and I spun around, but no one was there, only the empty circle of chairs and the soft sound of liquid cooling in cups that should have been steaming, and dread clawed my throat, and I ran my flashlight beam bouncing wildly across the walls as shadows stretched grotesquely like arms trying to catch me, and I burst out into the night, not stopping until I was across the street panting, and when I turned back days later I saw the warehouse boarded up, its windows sealed, yet faint white light still seeped through the cracks, as if it breathed and watched me even from across the street, and though I swore I would never again cross a forbidden threshold, I found myself drawn to another place, this time a sagging house in Gary, Indiana, its porch groaning under the weight of ivy, and the siding peeling away like dead skin, and in the fading evening light it loomed like a thing alive, and inside the basement the air buzzed with a steady hum, a massive contractor-grade generator churning away an orange extension cord, running. Upstairs a fresh gas can lying near, and I knew someone had been here very recently. And when I searched the kitchen, I found a fridge hidden behind a wall, and inside under a dim bulb were jars labeled in marker "Left-hand teeth, June 12th", and a paper bag tied neatly with a hairband. The grotesque contents swimming in yellowed fluid and bile rose in my throat as I staggered back, and then the generator stuttered and died, and the silence that followed was not empty. It was alive, it pressed against me, and the GoPro on my chest recorded the faint, unmistakable sound of human breathing directly into the mic 1 second before the hum cut, and I froze in the black kitchen, afraid to move, afraid to speak, afraid to acknowledge the thing I now knew was there with me, and I ran bursting through the door into the night air, my lungs screaming, but the sense of being followed never left, and still I was not done. My obsession had taken me too far, and the desert called me next to Barstow, California, where an abandoned Vista motel stood alone, its faded sign flickering weakly in the heat, and its empty pool was filled not with water, but with mannequins, a dozen of them posed like partygoers, cracked faces and melted skin grinning under the merciless sun. And when my camera clicked, one of their heads turned just slightly toward me, and I knew I was no longer photographing the forgotten, but the waiting. And by the time I reached home, my sanity frayed, my will to sleep shattered. I thought I had outrun them. But then one final horror came when I found on my phone a shaky recording I had never taken of myself sleeping in my bed, filmed from outside the window, my body motionless, my breath steady, and at the last second, a sleeve brushed across the lens, the sleeve of the jacket I had lost in the blank barn weeks before, and my blood ran cold, because whoever had filmed it was not me, and they were not gone. They had followed me, and they were already inside.